Hello, and welcome to our Tween and Teen Fandom Kit demo with the Public Library of Brookline. My name is Robin, and I'm a teen librarian at the Brookline Village Library. This month I'm here to help show you how to make your own clay or shrink film jewelry. Is this your first Public Library of Brookline to Go program? Here's how it works. Each month, the library is offering new take-home program kits, complete with everything you need to follow along, and video or written instructions created by one of your local librarians. The best part? Absolutely no due dates. You can keep everything included in your kit. Visit brklib.com to go for a full list of our current kit offerings. So in this kit, you should have an assortment of materials to make jewelry. You'll have polymer clay in different colors, and you will have a few clay tools that will let you cut and shape the clay. You will have various jewelry findings, including some eye hooks, which will let you attach your clay material to the jewelry earring holders and the key ring, which will let you make a charm. You will also get an assorted cutter, so this will help you cut your clay into different shapes. And then you'll also get some shrink film like this, with a rough side and a smooth side. The pencil should go on the rough side. And then you'll have a few colored pencils, and you can always use some of your own as well. And then some more jewelry findings like these earring hooks. You'll also need a pair of scissors and a hole punch, or you can use scissors to cut a hole. The hole punch tends to make it easier. Now for the first project, I'm going to walk you through how to make a 3-layer cake so that you can make cake slice earrings like you can see in the preview image. And remember, you can do anything you want. There's all sorts of things that you could make with polymer clay. Your imagination is the only limit. And first you just want to make sure you've got your colors the way you want. If you want to mix them, you can mix different colors. In this case, I've mixed some white and some gold to make a slightly more yellow cake color than what I had. And then you want to think about how you want to roll out your clay so that you can get a nice smooth layer. It's very easy. You can use pencils to be a roller if you have a slightly bigger marker that's round all the way around and smooth. You can also use that to roll out your clay a little bit. In order to make the cake layers, you're going to want to make the layers pretty thin, maybe about the thickness of a quarter or a little bit bigger. And think about it in the sense of how many layers you'd want in your cake. In this case, I'm going to make a 3-layer cake. Once you've got your layer to the thickness that you want, then you can grab a bottle cap or anything round that you think will work for measuring your cake. The bottle cap tends to be about the right size for an earring-sized piece of cake. And then you just want to use your cutting tool to cut around the outside of the bottle cap so that you can have a nice round shape. Once you've cut it out, you may need to neaten up the way it looks a little bit. You can either pull off some excess clay if there's a little too much on the edge of the clay, or you can fold it back in a little bit and kind of smoosh it so that the round is more circular and less rough around the edges. But you don't have to worry about it too much because you'll be able to neaten it up once you've got the layers stacked. And you'll need 3 layers of cake, so you'll need to cut out 3 different circles of the cake color. And then once you're ready, you also are going to want the frosting layer. So you'll need 2 more circles of whatever color the frosting is. In my case, I've made it a kind of a light lilac purple color. And once you've got all the layers cut, then you'll start with the cake layer on the bottom and then place the frosting layer on top of that cake layer and press it pretty firmly down to make sure that it's sticking. And then you just keep layering it like you would a cake, so that you have cake and then frosting and then cake and then frosting, and then the cake will be the top layer. So you have 3 cake layers and then the frosting in the middle. And if you need to clean up the edges, you can just smooth it with your finger as you're rotating the cake around. And then finally you'll want to roll out a bit more of the frosting color, and you can just shape it with your fingers, or you can roll it out, but about the same thickness as the internal layers of frosting that you've created. And then you just want to wrap it around the cake to create what would be the top frosting layer of the cake. And you can you can smooth it down around the cake and have it stretch a little bit so you've got a nice smooth edge. And then you go ahead and cut around the edges with your clay tool. And once that's done, you just want to smooth the bottom edges the same way that you did the edges of the cake, just to make sure that they're relatively even and that there's no kind of extra edges. Now in my case, I decided to make a little border for the cake, what would have been piped frosting if you were making an actual cake. So I rolled out 2 narrow ropes of clay that are the same color as the frosting, and then I'm just going to twist them together to create a kind of chain. And that takes a little bit of practice to get them all rolled together, but you can get it pretty consistent by rolling it along the edge of the paper. And then once you've got it the right length and the shape that you like in terms of the repetition, then you can wrap that around the bottom of your little miniature cake, and that'll make a nice little frosting edge for the bottoms of the slices of the cake. And then you just want to cut off the tail, and you can smooth that underneath so that where you've cut it doesn't really show, and you can see that you can tuck that little edge underneath so no one will really see it. And then you just want to make sure that the frosting on the edges is securely stuck to the bottom. You can always look at it from underneath and kind of smush the bottom edges a little more securely onto the edges so that it's got a little bit more attachment, but so that you're not influencing the way it looks from the top. Now comes the tricky part, is you're going to want to cut out the slices of cake. Part of the reason I have you make a full cake is that it'll allow you multiple chances to cut out the slices so that you can get 2 for a pair of earrings. And you'll see when I first did it with this tool, I just pressed straight down to make a sharp edge to make sure I could get a slice out of the cake. And the problem with doing it that way is that it smushes all the layers together, so it looks a little bit uneven and it makes it harder to see the layers of the frosting and the cake that you have created internally. They end up kind of melding into each other if you press a lot through with a tool like that. So what I discovered is that if you take one of the cutting tools and use a sawing motion instead of just pressing firmly down, you can compress the cake clefts and you'll see that the layers are more obvious from the way that it's cut. And you can just keep cutting slices until you get ones that look the way you want from the side, so ones that you can clearly see the frosting and the cake layers. And you can always reshape the cake pieces to make sure they're triangular a little bit. You don't want to squish them too much, but it'll help you make sure they're consistently shaped so that they look like 2 matching pairs of earrings. But once you're ready, then the final thing to do is to actually make the cake layers look like a cake. So you can use a tool if you've got it that's got a point, like this one, or you could use even a pencil. And then you just want to make little tiny dots onto the clay so that the cake layers have those little pockets in them, like real cake does, what would be little pockets of air. And then that'll really define the cake layers, so even if the clay is blending a little bit with the colors, you'll still be able to tell that it's a cake layer, and that helps you neaten up the way that it looks as well. Plus it gives it some nice texture. And then for a final touch for my cake slices, I decided to make a few little rose buds, since many cakes are decorated with rose-shaped frosting. And so these I just took a few little bits of a darker purple color and then rolled them up into a rosebud shape. And they're not too big, so you have to be a little bit careful. but you can always try again if you don't get it quite right the first time. And then I just place that right on top of the cake slice, so you have a nice little rosebud on top of the cake slice. And then for one last piece, I did want to show you all how to use the cutting tool that we're giving all of you. All of you will have a little cutter that's a little bit like a cookie cutter, but it's a little longer and smaller, of course. And in this case, I decided to cut 2 little gold leaves so that we could add a gold leaf to the outside edge of the cake. And as you can see, you can just cut them out and you get a consistent shape every time. And then in this case, I laid it from the kind of top to bottom where the rose connects to the back of the cake slice. And I liked using the gold a little bit because it's a little stronger in color and with the purple and the yellow. And then for the next part, you're going to actually want to put in the eye hook that you have. This is what will allow you to attach your clay creations to the earrings or charms. And you put these in before you bake them, because obviously you want them to go into the soft clay and hold on enough so that you'll be able to have a secure attachment to the clay. And I actually just use this to screw it in a little bit, so you're actually following the treads of the screws on the eye hook. So I just used the point of this tool to make sure that the little bit of clay was pushed right up to the edge of that little screw thread on the eye hook to make sure that it won't fall out. For a slightly different key charm, I decided to make an onigiri, or a Japanese rice ball. You see these as common snacks, and there's a whole lot of fun of making different kinds of food with clay. So in this case, I've just taken a little bit of white clay and I've shaped it into a triangle. It's a fairly thick triangle, you're not rolling it out. You can usually just shape this with your fingers. And then I have this little tool that has kind of a serrated edge, so I used that to just poke all over the edges of this triangle to make it look like rice in what would be the base of the onigiri. And I just make sure I did it all over and do it in a very kind of random way so that it's not super ordered, because rice doesn't tend to clump together in an ordered manner. And once that was all finished, I go ahead and get some very dark green. This will be the nori, or the seaweed that you usually wrap an onigiri in. And I flatten this out just by hand because it's not that much, so I don't need to roll it out. But I do slice it a little bit so it looks a little bit more like a real slice of seaweed, in that it's ordered and rectangular so that it'll wrap around the onigiri. And then once that's all set and neatened up, you can use the tool to kind of clean up the edges. I pull it off the paper and then wrap it around the rice ball. And for this one, I decided to attach the ring at the top, but you could also do it at the bottom. It's however you'd like to orient your charm. Then you want to bake your items, and you should bake them at around 250 degrees Fahrenheit for about 15 minutes. And then if it doesn't seem like it's hard enough, you bake it for another 5 minutes and then check on it. And then the other thing, of course, to remember is that all of the pieces are going to be very hot when they come out of the oven, including the metal parts. So if you've put the ring in, that part will be very hot. So make sure you let them cool before you try to pick them up. As you can see with these, I baked them a little too long. This little cake slice got a little scorched. You can see it's a little browner than the other one, but the other one cooked exactly as it should. And then the onigiri turned out very nicely. And then to attach it, all you do is take that little ring that you've inserted into the charm and you put a key ring on it. And then in the case of the earrings, you just attach the earring hooks to them. You may have to bend this. It takes a little bit of strength and specific to twist it so that you get an opening. And then you just want to hook it through that eye hook and then close it again to make sure that it will stay on the earring hook. And make sure you don't twist that earring hook bottom too much because you can twist them right off if you're strong enough. But it should work as long as you don't twist it all the way around. And then you'll have a nice pair of earrings. So as you can see, these are the nice cake earrings and the rice ball charm. So that's an example of what you can do with the polymer clay. Thanks for making art with us this month. We'd love to see what you made this month, so if you'd like to share it with us, then you can use the hashtag BRKLIB2Go to share photos of your projects. The Tween and Teen Kit program is generously sponsored by the Friends of the Brookline Public Library and the Brookline Library Foundation.